What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Convene Communities Podcast, a podcast with a purpose. And now, like you've all been waiting for, our host, Matthew Curran.
How are you, Andy? Thanks for bringing me on with such enthusiasm.
That's right.
I like it. All right, here with my co-host, Jeff Bateson and Andy Barker. But we have a very special guest tonight. Really excited about this. Somebody who's out in the industry and making such a big difference in the mental health world of our youth. And so excited. Amy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, Matt. Thank you. How is everybody this evening on this wonderful Wednesday?
Oh, it's awesome.
Great.
Great. I mean, daggone Jeff's up in the Arctic North somewhere. So
you need a sweatshirt or something.
Listen, let's jump right in because this is a really important topic that you've really are out there. You're doing great things. You're making a living doing this, and you've had a bit of a transition to get you where you are. But you know, you have this program. It says kindness starts with me. You know, so we'll get to that here in just a minute. That's going to be our main topic. But first, we got to know a little bit about who Amy is.
Ooh, who am I? Well, first and foremost, I'm a mom of two. So I have two preteen boy-girl twins. I am I'm going to say this is, since Dak is here, I'm a St. Louis native. So, but even more than that is I was an educator for 20 years. I was in the industry for a really long time. Right out of college, and did that for 20 some odd years in between having kids and all that kind of stuff. But I was kind of lost. I got to a point where I was like, this just isn't lighting me up anymore. But what I saw through that was kids that were really struggling with their own, like, who am I kind of thing. They were struggling with confidence. They were struggling to love on themselves. They were struggling with how to take self-love and turn it outward to other kids. I worked in school districts that had no money and school districts that had every dollar imaginable, and it was the same thing consistently. And I think they were sent to me more often than not because I could have a conversation with them where they felt safe. And a big piece of that was because I was that kid growing up. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't love on myself. So I could see through their perspective what they were struggling with. And, you know, COVID kind of came in at a time where I was at my lowest, just emotionally, mentally, professionally. And I was like, I've got to do something different for myself. I was working a ton of hours. I didn't see my kids very often. And I was like, something's got to change. I want to do more with the connection that I can have with these kids and their parents. So for me, it was, I'm going to retire from teaching and start my own business in the middle of COVID, mind you.
Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I love it.
Yeah. And it was a challenge because I knew nothing about starting a business.
Yeah.
But I took a leap of faith in myself and what I knew, the work I had done, the research I had done, and put it out there, and still working with kids going into, you know, being able to do this nationally now. But it was really a more of not only growth and helping and serving the kids, but it was also growth and serving myself to find myself again. So it's been a huge transition for sure.
I have a question for you. So when did you really, or what year did you, it's a two-part question. What year did you really start seeing all of the youth, all the kids kind of, they're changing a little bit, their mental health?
I'm going to just ask the same thing.
Processes changing. And then I want to ask, did you see it? You know, yes, you were out of the classroom, but have you seen it post-COVID? So two-part question. First, answer when you started seeing it, and then we'll get to the post-COVID.
Well, as far as age, I saw kids as young as first grade, second grade.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're talking young, just, they didn't know, first of all, they didn't know like just how to socially interact successfully with one another. And then they were so hard on themselves, that era of perfectionism and all of those kinds of things of like, well, if I don't do this right, I'm going to beat myself up for it. Mm-hmm. It really, really, truly hit, I would say, fourth grade, was a huge like transition that you saw kids just falling apart. You just saw them like wanting to be a part of something, changing how they dressed, what they wore, how they behaved to just try to fit in because they didn't know. They were like, for some kids, those changes are happening, hormonally, mentally, emotionally. And you throw on top what they're having at home, whether they have a stable family, unstable, they know where they're sleeping that night. Post COVID, you see it even younger. I've had kids as young as first grade come up and say, "Would you be my friend? Because I don't have any friends. Nobody likes me." And that's heartbreaking because COVID hit, they're all stuck going digital. And they're like, well, how do I get back into this to socially interact successfully?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't, they didn't know how. And the parents are like, we don't know how to help them. So it was one of those things of not only did we have to, I won't say retrain, but we had to give them more resources after COVID, but we also had to give their parents resources. And I think that's why for me, coming in that transition was really super helpful. And I'm a parent that was going through it as well. Right. So not only was I dealing with it professionally, I was also dealing with it personally.
Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned that about, the fourth graders. One, that's what I did, my student teaching in is fourth grade. Mm-hmm. And, I always equated it, they're still kids, but yet they're old enough to, get jokes. They're old enough to sort of have conversations with you. Right. Mm-hmm. And as early or as young as those kids were and are that you were seeing it, but probably around that same time is when I was coaching in college. And, Matt, we've talked about this before. If I look back or when I look back, I know that there were college age kids, 18 to 24, that were dealing with the same thing. And this was, late 2010s. And, it was all that same sort of stuff as you were just talking about. And then, post COVID now with my high schoolers is exactly what you just said is reteaching, retraining, really kids how to interact, how to talk, not just with their friends, because that's pretty natural, but with anybody, with everybody. And we just had a couple of parent conversations or parent meetings just this week. And like you said, teaching the parents a couple of things, just like, hey, we get to see as teachers things that parents don't get to see.
Oh, yeah.
Kids will say they don't want to talk around teachers, but they talk around teachers, right? You always hear everything. And so it's just, hey, just want to let you know this is kind of what's going on. And, maybe you can start to see it at home and help out.
Yeah. And that's a big piece of it too, because when I know for me as a parent, when my kids were going through the Zooming, during COVID, they hated it. They felt so complete, and they were second, third grade at that time. So for them, they were like, how do we even do this? Like, how do we sit in a classroom? How do you do gym class? How do you, this doesn't make any sense. And then, we're going to throw you back into school now. You got to let's go back to normal. What does that mean? Yeah. They don't know. They have a new normal now of, I have to relearn how to sit in the classroom. I have to relearn how to handle conflict resolution. I have to figure out, because you still have people that, that social distance or, being able to have a conversation where they don't feel on edge. You're still dealing with that even several years later.
Yep. Yeah. Well, fundamentally, I think it changed, right? It changed how our kids interacted. It changed how we interacted. So
absolutely.
With the kids, Amy, did you see a lot of that social anxiety build up, pre to post? But I think it was already there. I think, I'll be honest, I'll call it a spade, and you can answer it and let me know what you think. But we as parents right now, we're hover parents, we're helicopter parents. We shelter our kids so much that we don't want them to experience anything that might cause them harm or feeling bad. Well, we're doing them a little bit of a disservice, in my opinion, because we have to teach them how to handle life. We have to teach them how to handle everyday decision making. And if we're always making their decisions for them from a young age,
Failures.
allowing them to get the basic skills of, like I said, failures. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, and I will fully admit I was that helicopter parent. Now, I will also say I'm a single parent of 2, so I thought I had to like make sure that they're in this little bubble so they don't get hurt, so they don't get, their feelings hurt, or they don't, whatever it is, because then I would look like a failure as a parent. And when I kind of let go of that piece, I let my kids fail forward. So, well, let's go climb across the monkey bars. Well, I can't do it. Well, let's give it a try. It's the language in which you talk to your kids to empower them. Super important. If they go, oh, well, you might fall. Let me just hold you. Let them fall. It's okay. You're going to be right there to pick them up and put the Band-Aid on it.
Yep.
Right. But you've got to let them experience pain. You've got to let them experience hurt, because when they get into where Jeff's age, high school, and they have that boyfriend or that girlfriend, they get their heart broken. What are they going to do? They don't know how to experience hurt or pain. Not that we want our kids to experience it from, a huge amount of pain, but when you've lost somebody in your life, just quickly, I lost my dad at a very young age, and I didn't know how to handle it. Mm-hmm. Because again, as much as my mom will claim she's not a helicopter parent, she was. She didn't want me to get hurt. And I see it now that she has grandkids. Just stop doing, But if I had that at a younger age of failing forward or getting that bad grade on a report, that's huge for kids this age, especially when you're talking that perfectionist mentality. I'll ask kids and they'll go, oh, well, I didn't get an A on it, but I got a B. And I'm like, and that's not good enough. And I'm like, whoa, like we need to relook at how we're conversing with our kids.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about effort over the final grade.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what, I had the bad grades covered.
Why are we not surprised on that one?
Again, hurtful.
That's why you got in the Navy, right? You can get in the
Oh,
Marine.
here we go. Give them their 5 minutes of back and forth.
I'll just wait.
Amy,
Matt, I think we're experiencing technical difficulties on Matt's end.
Amy, speaking about the kids. Sorry, Doc. Let's go back to, you left teaching to start your own business. I know we'll talk more about parenting, coming up, but let's go back to that and tell us a little bit more about your business and what you do and how you're helping kids and parents right now.
Well, there was a lot of research that went into it, first of all, because like I said, I didn't know anything about running a business. So I had to do the research on that aspect, how to get it started, where do I go? But then I did a whole lot of research with fellow educators, with counselors, psychologists, things like that. My business kind of starts with me is all about getting into the schools as an assembly keynote speaker to talk to these kids at the elementary and middle school level. I do high school as well, but for the most part, it's elementary and middle school, and just encouraging them, helping them to light up about the things that they love, encouraging them to be themselves, because they hear it all the time. Oh, just be yourself. Well, what does that mean? And for me, I was so limited in what I could do within the classroom. You've got a full curriculum, Jeff, you got a full curriculum. You're trying to get through the day. How in the world was I going to bring this into my classroom? Well, now I could step out of the classroom, create something for these educators and bring it to them. So that's what I did. And I started out here locally, the school's here locally in St. Louis. And then I was like, well, I'm going to take a shot in the dark and just start reaching out to other schools. I had friends in, other areas and other states. And, within the first year and a half, I was traveling 3 or 4 times a month throughout the country. So there is a need for it, 100%. And that's what I kept hearing from counselors and administrators. And there's such a need for it. We don't have anything like this that just encourages the kids to love on themselves and then turn around and give it back out. So the need is there.
Yeah. So kind of starts with me. Explain that. Where'd you come up with that?
So we have to be kind to ourselves before we can turn around and give it back out. And that's a personal thing because I was not kind to myself growing up, throughout my younger years. And I just wanted to find a way to connect with kids where they could go, oh, to be kind to myself, what does that mean? It means taking care of yourself. It means eating the right things. That means getting enough sleep. That means doing the things that you love to do. And so that whole aspect of kindness starts because it has to start here internally before you can actually turn around and give it back out. So that's where that started from.
Yeah, I want to bring up a topic too and get your thoughts on it because this is a pet peeve of mine. A pet peeve of mine is that we're going to have mental health days off in schools, right? And what is a mental health day off in schools? We're going to let the kids go home. It's going to be like a teacher work day, but it's a mental health day off. So we're going to give them a break. Well, my short little thought process is if you're a young boy, you're going to go home and play Xbox or PlayStation, play Call of Duty or whatever it is. A mental health day off in school should be when you're bringing in Amy to teach about kind of starts with me, and you're giving these kids the resources that they need to deal with the world that they're living in, because the world that they're living in is a high stress, high pressure world.
Yep.
And a mental health day off is not a mental health day off. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, and I often think, because I don't remember ever having mental health day off when I was in elementary, middle school, and high school. You just worked through it, or you saw the counselor, or you had a meeting as a class or as a group. A mental health day is one thing. It's how it's utilized. Sending him home, okay, but what are you sending him home with? Mm-hmm. What tools? So give it a half day if you need to. That half day of meeting with myself, their counselors, all of those things, giving them resources so they can then take them home and focus on them. A lot of the resources that I talk about, they're able to take with them after they go out of the classroom, after they walk away from the assembly.
Yeah. So we're talking about half the, I'll say this one because just to build on that, Jeff, then you can ask a question. But we're talking about half the solution, right? The kids are half of it. That's your audience in school, but the other half is this parent side. How do you work on connecting with them? And what are some of the things that you have? We're going to get into a little bit more as well. But just talk about that, because you want to connect with the teachers, you want to connect with the administration, you want to connect with the kids, and you want to connect with the parents, because parents need the resources as well.
Yeah. So it's a 3-part, system. It's the school, the kid, the parents. You have to have all 3 on board to truly be able to help the kids. But at the same time, the parents are over here going like, hey, we need something too. Help us, help us. I was one of those parents where I was like, where are the resources? Like parenting does not come with a manual. If any of y'all got a manual, please let me know. Because when my kids were born, it did not come with one. So we're figuring it out along with them. So how do we deal with when we get overwhelmed? How do we deal with our kids' anxiety? How do we deal with our own anxiety? Mm-hmm. So when I meet with parents, that's one of their number one questions is, how do I help my kid through the anxiety, the overwhelm, the stress, all of those things? Well, are you helping? Part of that is, I'll talk you through that with some resources, but how are you helping yourself through that too? Because as parents, what's the first thing we do? We put all of our work in, we put all of our thoughts, all of our love into our kids, and we put ourselves last. So it's really super important that these parents also get resources to help themselves so they can in turn help their kids. Yeah,
exactly. Jeff, you got anything you want to ask before we go into the next part?
Well, it's just while you were talking about, excuse me, wellness days and mental health days is, I think they used to call some of that recess and gym class and other extracurriculars that has been taken away. And I see it slowly coming back, post-COVID, like we were talking about. We were given the suggestion to take our classes outside. We have block scheduling, so 90-minute class. Just take your high school kids outside for 5 minutes. Just let them walk around. Let them stay in there, right? And the kids loved it. Yep. One, they didn't have to do 5 minutes extra of work or whatever it was, but they just got a chance to go outside and feel the sun on their face and breathe some fresh air. So, and then, with the parents, it's 100% true. And I'm seeing it more and more. And again, this is just my 5th year teaching in the classroom. And, I've already talked to or had parents talk to me or ask me or shoot me emails, hey, Billy or Susie, whoever it is, just to let you know that they're going through some tough times, or they're pretty anxious about school, or it's really tough for them to come to school for whatever the reasons are. And then there's almost always well, do you have any suggestions for me to deal with this with them? And I always want to just say, basically, I just say, here's what I do with my kids. I got same age kids, but that doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean that I'm the expert on it. And not only parents, but teachers can use some of these techniques to help deal with, to help educate the parents and also deal with the kids at school. So it is a pretty pressing issue right now that I do see is getting answered slowly, and people like yourself are certainly helping push that along.
Yeah, and it is, like I said, it is a threefold thing, and I actually offer to meet with staff as well, for their own mental health, especially coming out of COVID. Just how do we reintegrate to be successful for themselves and for the kids and for the parents.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you're a business and you had to become a business, right? So,
Yep.
But there was one part that was kind of missing a little bit. It was great going into the schools. And this is kind of where we picked up with Convene and getting to know each other and working together is, you're working in the school setting, but now what's the leave behind? How do you continue to grow a business? So let's transition into talking about why you came to Convene, or why you found interest in Convene. And what are you doing in Convene? And we have some slides that we'll pull up and kind of talk about it, but just talk about that first before we pull the first slide up.
Well, it's interesting because I came to Convene as an observer.
That's right.
I was like, nothing about business. Someone else had invited me because they were creating a business within there, and they were talking about topics that were important to me, and I wanted to use it as my own self-growth. And then I was like, how can I utilize Convene as well for my own business? Because I go into these schools, talk, and then I leave.
Yeah.
Well, how can I create something that's ongoing for them, additional resources? So really getting into the heart of Convene as an additional resource and leave behind for them.
Yes. So you're a speaker, you're
Yep.
an author,
Yep.
right? So you have two things. You're an educator first and foremost, and you always will be because that's what you did. And so it was finding a way. Can we expand it? Can we grow? Can we think outside of the box? And so then you meet Kate Gallahue through introductions, and you meet Jeff Bateson. And so pull up that slide there, Doc, and you became a co-leader of Uniquely Yours. So talk about this community, and we'll get to Uniquely You a little bit later.
Yeah, so Uniquely Yours is for parents. Again, there's no manual for parenting, but Uniquely Yours gives you the opportunity in a safe space to pull some resources, talk with experts, talk with other parents. And what I really like about Convene is the safety and the anonymity. You can go into Uniquely Yours and pose a question and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, and people will respond. You can post anonymously, which is fantastic. If you don't want to put your name to it, and they can go in and they can say, this is what's worked for me. Jeff was kind of alluded to it before, like giving your perspective on it. You'll have experts that'll come in and say, here's some resources, here's some ideas. But Uniquely Yours is for parents to help them navigate being a parent. And whether it's you're a new parent, you're a middle of the road parent, or you got kids that are grown, it's an opportunity to really be part of a community that allows you to not have all the answers like some kids think we do as parents.
Yeah. Okay, and that's good, and so Uniquely You and Uniquely Yours is such an important topic, and you touched on it and alluded on it earlier, right? It's two parts, it's three parts, but it's two parts. it's parents. The parents need the resources. The kids need the resources. And so that's how we build into the Uniquely You community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's taking aspects of parenting that you may have no clue about, and it covers so much in Uniquely Yours. There's so many different resources. There's so many different, you know, opportunities for parents to go, oh, I never really thought about that. Or I'm struggling with this. Ooh, look, somebody else. I'm not alone in this. And that's a big piece of it, is realizing that we're not alone in the parenting journey. Whether you're a single parent, 2-parent household, multiple parents, you know, whatever it is, you can draw into Uniquely Yours as an opportunity that it's yours, your community. That's a big piece of it.
Yeah, I think you just hit on a big piece of it, that it's your community as a parent, and as all of us parents. You know, the community is such a good one. It's going to be an unbelievable community, from what you were just talking about, the standpoint of everybody gets a chance to not only ask questions but also share. You know, there's very few, if any, experts at all on parenting, but we all have expertise because we are parents. We've been through scenarios. You know, the four of us have been through a scenario that's the same scenario with at least one of our kids, but we've all dealt with it or handled it differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can say that with every parent. And then, you know, building on top of that, so parents have other parents as resources, but at the same time, with all the different, opportunities for people to come in and form groups inside of Uniquely Yours. Every group has a resource with every other group, and there's just open to so many different and unique opportunities for people to get all the different perspectives on parenting, in really any facet of parenting that they need.
And that's huge, because they're able to kind of take it upon themselves to go, oh, well, I've learned about this. Let me share that with the other people in the community. And now they've become a part of building the community. And that's huge. I resisted for a really long, I was like, I don't have anything to offer. And as a parent, you probably, if you're in the community, well, I don't really have anything to offer. I'm just here to, you know, take advice or ask questions.
Right.
No, you have something to offer. 100%.
Right. Yeah. And it's okay if they do want to just ask questions and take advice, because eventually they're going to find out that they too have a voice.
Yep.
Right. Maybe it's the anonymity piece. Maybe they do want to say something, and okay, well, I'm going to use the anonymous feature, say it, get some feedback, and oh, hey, you know what? I've got a voice here. I have a seat at this table.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big piece of Convene itself, is real conversations and just being able to, as you said, sit around that table, have a discussion without judgment.
So let's talk about you and your group and what you have inside of there. So I'll have Doc go to the next slide. And so you have a group inside the community, and we'll show kind of people how they transition to that. And so Doc can go talk about this. This here is showing the community, or the groups inside the community, and then we'll transition over to the next slide, which is inside of your community.
Yeah. So my group inside of Uniquely Yours is Empowered Parents equals Empowered Kids, because as parents, if we can be empowered, we can help them transition into empowered children and then eventually empowered adults. So that was my key in creating that group, is to give parents resources and outlets to feel empowered within themselves as parents and human beings.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. So go to the next slide, Doc. And this is when you go into your group.
Yep.
You know, so this is what it looks like here, and talk about that a little
bit. So that's the first page you'll see when you click into that group. And that group, that Empowered Parents equals Empowered Kids, that's a free public group that you can join. You know, and you'll see I share my story at the beginning, so you get to know me a little bit more. And what I'm doing to be able to help facilitate conversation and help, you know, build empowered parents.
Yeah, that's a wonderful interview by me.
Yes, absolutely.
Pat yourself on the back.
Yeah, that's right. That little pat on the back. But we really kind of get into, again, a little bit more of your story in that interview, talking about your why behind a little bit more deeper than what we went at the beginning of this, of why you do what you do. and how you got there. And so, which is really awesome, really cool. So what kind of things do we have in there? So then, we got things called experiences. We've got discussion boards. We're going to show a little bit of that. Go to the next slide, Doc. All right, these are 3 of your experiences, and what I wrote up there: real conversations and real experiences. So the tagline of Convene, right? Real life, real people, real experiences. This allows your people to really engage and talk about why you have these and how that works.
Yeah. And so this is all about learning. This is all about getting in there. And as parents, you got to do the work too. So I created these experiences so parents can realize that what they take away from those experiences, they can then help their kids do the same thing. One of them's about breath work. One of them's about effective communication with their kids, and you'll actually see more going in there as the group continues to build. And just ways to be, empowered parents. So yeah, those experiences have discussion boards. You'll see opportunities to answer questions and, go in there and you can take them. In the breathwork one, there's actually one where you, as parents, you get to sit down for a minute and focus on yourself, literally for a minute.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's really pretty cool because, you're going back and forth and parents are actually, it's not just Amy, you are the expert. You're the expert of your group. You're the reason why they're there, but parents get the opportunity to engage with you as well.
Yeah. And that's huge because then I can look at it and go, well, these are my thoughts. This is my perspective, as well as other parents putting in their perspective and their thoughts. And they're going to, maybe they bring up something. I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Let me tell you about how I made that work as a parent and so I think being that expert in that space, I'm able to allow them to talk freely. Again, you have that piece of anonymity. And really take what I've taken away as an educator, as a parent, as an author, and I can turn around and then offer it up to parents within the group.
Right. And inside of each one of those experiences, take the effects of cyberbullying, for example.
Yep.
Once the parents read through the background and through the information and answer some of the questions about their own experiences with that, they then get to read all the other answers from parents as well. And then now it's parent to parent or peer to peer learning with each other.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we talk about peer to peer learning for kids, but there's peer to peer learning that happens for adults too. And that's huge. That's huge within the community to be able to offer that up.
Yeah. One of the biggest examples that I always talk about it like this. It's like the 4 of us sitting around the table. And if I were to say, hey, we're all parents, we've established that. And if I were to say, hey, look, guys, I'm having this situation with my kid, how would you handle it? How would you handle it? And how are you going to say it? You're going to talk about, your answer is going to be like, well, this is the way I would handle it. Don't do it like this because we really messed that up. Or do it like this because it was so successful, but you're pulling from your life experience. And that's what's key.
And again, it's real conversations. Where do you get them from? Real life, and I share that. There's also a blog, as well. And that is real things that I have gone through as a parent.
Yeah.
So,
well, this is the example of what the middle school question looks like, or the middle school experience. And it's just the experience background. So you're giving information and talk about that in there.
Yeah. So this is first of all, what is effective communication? What do our kids need it for? So I give some background into what it allows the kids to be able, growth, social, all of those different things, just learning how to communicate back and forth. As a middle school parent, I use some of what I do with my own kids. I used it within that, because that was a huge struggle as a parent for that effective communication. Especially when your middle schoolers don't want to talk to you.
Man, I could have used that my first year of teaching in 7th and 8th grade.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, before we move on real quick, I just want to say one thing. Harry, we're going to get to your question. The 3rd section after we transition through this is all Q&A. So keep putting your questions in there, guys. If you have them, we'll have Amy answer them. We'll talk about it. You can call in also in the third section here coming up. But we're going to talk about 5 more minutes about, her community and things that's going on. And then we'll transition into that Q&A and that conversation here in just a moment. So, but keep putting your questions in there and we'll get to them. Go to the next slide there, Doc.
Look here, you know what? You're not my real dad, all right? I'm getting quite tired of this, pal.
I thought she's the boss or something.
Wow. Hurtful.
All right, discussion boards, right? I have a question and I want to ask you, this is probably the best way that people can interact with you, or one of the best ways that they can interact with you. You see some questions here. What piece of advice would you give a middle schooler? Speaking of that, 9 people have talked about in that. The bullying one, but below it was probably just posted. The answers rise to the top, right? So they rise to the top. So somebody answered the one about bullying, and that's why it popped to the top. But you can see some different things that go on there, and that's a great thing. So talk about that and about
this is probably one of my favorite features. Not that all the rest of them are not great, but this is probably one of my favorites because it allows you to go in and post questions about anything related to parenting or depending on what community you're in. To post it, and you can post it without your name attached. You can post it anonymously and put it out there. I've posted in other communities anonymously because I was like, I think I want to be, I think I want to be anonymous in this one because there are subjects that are a little difficult. I believe there was one in there talking about how do you talk to your kids about sex. For some parents, they're like, I don't want to have that discussion. I don't want to have that discussion. But the discussion boards open it up for parents to go, well, this is what's worked for me, or this is what hasn't worked for me. You'll get my perspective. You'll get Jeff's perspective, maybe Kate's perspective, whoever that's part of that community will come in and go, ooh, yeah, I just went through this. Let me respond. And again, there's that safety feature of the anonymity. And there's so many different topics that can be brought up. That's where you go and you post it in there when you're like, I don't know what else to do in this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that's moderated, right? You're moderating that. Jeff's moderating that. Kate's moderating that. Mm-hmm. There are other safety features built in. So we have good, pure, good conversations, but you can ask those hard questions either as yourself. I can even go in as the creator founder of Convene, and I can put a hard question out there, but I can do it anonymously and nobody knows it's me, you know? And so these things are important because especially when it comes to our youth and uniquely you, sometimes they ask the hard questions or they want to have that space to ask the hard questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the piece about the uniquely you is if they don't want to go to their parents, but they're comfortable talking to their peers, maybe they don't do it at school, but I can go to Uniquely You and I can put it in there and I can put that question out there and have other kids, maybe my age, maybe that have gone through it already, and they'll give me feedback on it in a safe space.
And it works. I mean, I've seen it with my students and even with my daughters. But once they understand that it's anonymous, and even people that they've gone to school with their whole life won't know who it is unless they write something that identifies them, but they will open up. There's a couple of discussion board and experiences in Uniquely You, and I have one for my own classroom or classrooms, and man, they will open up. It's a chance for them to say what they want and who they are, and kind of, I don't want to say vent, but vent in kind of a good way, in a needed way, right? Just last week, there was a discussion board post in Uniquely You that I know, Amy, you responded to, and Kate and I responded to, and some others did. And this post was pretty deep and also pretty honest, right? It took us through their early childhood and where they kind of are now in the transition, and just was looking for some responses, some validation that they were doing something right. And within within a day, there were 6-7 responses.
Yeah.
So
and that's great. The thing too, is they're able to do it behind their computer or behind their phone. And sometimes that is their safe space as opposed to face or
almost always now,
because that's where they feel safe at. So giving them that space is huge for their own growth.
Yeah. very much is.
Yeah, we're going to jump ahead to one slide, and it's a slide. So you're an author, and I want to talk about this. And so when Doc pulls it up, I want you to talk about, this is your lead bind. This is part of your lead bind. This is being built right now, but you're doing a book. Go ahead, keep going, Doc. That's not the right one, but hold on. Let me read that quote. Yeah, read that one, Amy.
Why? So this is one of my favorite quotes. Why fit in when you were born to stand out? So when I go into the schools, I talk about standing out, standing up, and being you. So I always have that quote. It's even at the bottom of my emails when I send out emails.
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect. I love it. I actually pulled it off your email and I made the slides. But look, so here it is. You're you're author. So talk about your book and how you're building this in and how this is going to be an important tool for your growth.
Yeah, so I created a manual since we were not given that manual when the kids were born. I wanted to be able to put something all together from my own experiences as a parent, as an educator, and the research that I've done. I wanted to house it all in one place. And I wanted to make it quick and easy for parents to access it because parents have a crazy busy schedule. So this is a digital book, 8 Tools to Empower Your Kids. You can get it on Amazon. And it's a quick read because it allows you to go, oh, there's 8 tools. Let me go through each tool. There's, I share, a bit of how I utilize the tool, what that looks like for your kids, and then kind of follow it up with, some takeaways in each chapter. And now what I'm doing is I'm taking my digital book and I'm bringing it over to Convene to create a book club for parents to be a part of. We'll be doing, there is modules. I don't know if we have a slide for that, but the modules, there's going to be 8 of them that allow the parents to answer some questions about the chapter, post questions about the chapter, and then we come together on a Zoom to have a real book club with a glass of wine and, embracing those chapters and having a discussion about those chapters of what their takeaways from the chapters are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad you just described that because, as you're talking about your book, which is awesome, traditionally people go and buy a book, they read it, and then maybe they have a book club about it with some people in the neighborhood or something, right? And that's about it. Hardly ever do they have a book club with the author of the book who is giving this advice on parenting and putting it on in Convene and using all the features. Now they have almost constant access to you when needed, and other people that are in the book that care about it enough to be in the group.
Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
They bring their thoughts around. I think book clubs are one of the most powerful things we've done. I've done the 5 love languages twice. We're getting ready. I was talking with Kate the other day. We're going to bring it back. We're going to do yours. It's just book clubs are great because now you're getting a collaborative learning environment, right? And people are coming in and answering questions and doing that. It's going to be wonderful. I'm excited about it. And these are things that people don't think about. So these are things that, you and I didn't even know until a few weeks ago that you were an author and that you'd written a book. And I was like, oh yeah, we got to do this.
Yeah, because it's been sitting out there digitally for a while, and I really had no plan whatsoever. I'm actually in the process of writing a children's book as well. So as soon as that gets illustrated, if anybody knows an illustrator, that'll be ready to go. Okay. But just resources. That is what Convene is about, is giving resources in a safe space for anybody, parents, kids, if you're in, health and wellness. And I mean, there's so much out there within the community. But the book club is going to be amazing. There'll be some modules that you can take. You can ask questions about the specific chapters, and then you'll meet with me every 2 weeks, and we'll talk about the chapters and what you got out of it, what you're still working on. And, we'll talk about goals for, how you can take those tools and implement them in your daily life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Matt, before we go to any questions, let's talk about this because it just popped into my head here. So Convene, collaboration, parenting, if parents have comments, concerns, questions, advice, whatever, coming into uniquely you and yours. But we have some other amazing people in different communities or have their own communities that we can direct to, like husbands, men, right?
Yeah.
I'm still figuring it out. Trust me, But someone comes into uniquely yours and has a question, and it's about being a husband, being a man, whatever, and we can direct them to the Josh Griffin, right?
Yep.
He's got his own community about parenting, and especially focused on men. And
Yeah.
we've got other people that we can direct them to that can all collaborate with this big parenting project.
Yeah. And that's a huge piece, is because I was introduced to Convene by the Josh Griffith.
The Josh
Griffith. And I simply came in to observe, like, to be a part of his podcast, to be, because I wanted his focus is mental health for men especially. And I wanted to make sure that, to be supportive, but to learn from that, because from a female perspective, I'm like, I don't know what you all are thinking about, so to get that perspective. And then you go into, Dr. Mel with her, health and wellness community. You go into, there's a women's community, there's communities being built.
That was the next one.
It's amazing. There's so many communities, and if you come into Convene, you can build a community.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to talk about that. So
yeah, exactly. Well, I've asked your questions for Amy. I asked your, not you. So that was my fault there. That's why I should let Jeff do that.
Spell check.
We won't point it out.
There was a question here from Harry. And the question was, do you think that people are, and I'm going to add on to the question, his question specifically was, do you think students that are involved in high school sports have less mental health issues? But I also would say, in extracurricular activities. So talk about that. What's your thoughts there? And Jeff, I saw you shaking your head because you're a coach. So
I don't think it's less mental health issues. Because it's not as if you just join a sport and the mental health issues go away. Mm-hmm. But I believe, and I'll speak from my own experience, that being active helps with your mental health. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a tool that can help when those negative thoughts come up, or you're just struggling to get out of bed. Moving your body or being in the sport or something of that nature, even extracurricular things, allows the inner conversation to switch a little bit. But I don't think that doing sports or extracurricular things gets rid of the mental health issue. It is a chemical thing. It's a resource. I'll say it that way. It's a resource.
Yeah.
That you use.
Yeah. No, and I've seen it from both the boys and the girls, going from, like I mentioned earlier on with in college, that was all men, 18 to 24-year-old men for the most part, right? Now it's, I started out with the boys 5 years ago, and now I'm coaching on the girls side, and boys through COVID and girls just post-COVID, and there's mental health issues.
Oh, yeah.
On both sides of it. The girls are more apt to be a little more open about it. Mm-hmm. And I've had specifically, I'll just say in the last two and a half years, I've had 2 or 3 girls that are great kids. They were very good players, and they came up to me and said, Coach Jeff, I just can't do it. I just need the time away. I've got a lot of things going on. And one girl just literally broke down. And I've had the other opposite end of it with, hey, I'm going through a lot, but I want to keep playing because I love playing and I love my teammates. And that does help, like you said, with some of the mental health issues. It gives them a chance just to get out of, if you will, out of their own head every once in a while, or just to be in a different space, a safe space, a fun space, whatever it is, for those 2 hours or more. So it's definitely not less mental health issues with student athletes, or like Matt, you said, with kids in extracurricular activities. It just gives them a little bit of time away if talked to properly about it.
Yeah.
Comes in different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So if you got another question, we got a couple more minutes. Ask it away now to talk to Amy. Listen, what is your best advice for these young kids when you go into the classroom, when you're talking to them? What do you tell them? What are you saying to them when you're talking about topics like bullying, when you're talking about the different things that you talk about?
One of the I think for me, one of the most powerful things that I share with them, and I wish somebody had shared it with me, is that not everybody's going to be your friend.
Yeah.
And that's when I make that comment, I will have middle schoolers go, "What?" Like, and I will look and I'll go, "Not everybody's going to," and they immediately go to, "What did I do wrong?" And I'm like, "It has nothing to do with what you've done. You just don't align with everybody, and that's okay. Like, it's okay not to be friends with everybody. Respect is still there, but you can." Have a classmate here and have a friend here, but you're not going to necessarily align with the classmate over here. And I speak on that because I've seen it with my own children. And that's something that I teach my own kids. Not everybody's going to be your friend. That's okay. We can still be respectful. We just don't have to be, attached at the hip with one another. And that's really one, especially for middle schoolers, that they're like, well, what does that mean? Like, how do I handle that when, certain people don't want to be my friend? I go, you continue to be yourself, because again, the right people will surround you. The people that see you for you will surround you.
Yeah.
And they, I always ask them, do you have like one or two really close people? And they usually always, they'll be the kid sitting next to them and they're hugging on him and whatever. And I'm like, okay, do they see you for you? Do they see the person? And are they trying to change what you wear, change how you look, and all those kinds of things? And it's just awareness for them. It's a huge amount of awareness, especially at that middle school level.
Yeah. One of the things I've always gravitated to when you talked about it is you talk about superheroes with the kids.
Yep.
And I think that's awesome. And just the image and the visual that comes up, and I can just see kids' faces lighting up. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So especially for elementary level, typically K-2, K-3 sometimes. And I didn't wear it today. I forgot to grab it, but I put on a superhero cape. And we talk about being kindness superheroes. When I go in, I'm Miss K, the kindness superhero. And just showing kids that they can be kind and be that superhero for themselves and for each other. What does that look like? How do we show up on the playground? How do we show up in the classroom? How do we show up at home? And just get them really excited. I'll have music blasting as they're coming in, and I'll put on the especially for the young ones, I'll put the superhero cape on wrong, and I'll have one of them come up to show me how to put it on. I'm like, oh, thank you for being so kind. Just kind of getting them into that routine of this is how you can show up for each other. And then I talk about how to be your own kindness superhero. So that's always a fun piece of it.
I love it. I love it. Got a question. Eugene asked us a very loaded question here, which it really
He
is.
always does.
I know. You think the internet, we'll put internet / social media, has contributed to the decline in our culture's mental well-being?
That's not a parenting question, Eugene. Come on now.
But it could be.
It is.
Think about our kids. Think about our kids. We talk about this all the time, Amy.
Yep.
Think about our kids and the impact that social media and the internet. So they're like one and the same, the impact that those two things have on our kids. It's huge, but this is a class within itself that we could go on for a whole podcast about this topic, because it plays such an effect.
And it's one of the things I actually talk to kids about when I go into these schools is the aspect of social media. And it can be used to heal or it can be used to hurt. That's one of the things. And they kind of look at me, especially middle school, and I talk about, what do you use it for? Mm-hmm. Are you going on and Snapchatting and sending a picture to your friend? Or are you being silly? Are you being yourself, showing up authentically through your social media? Or are you gravitating towards following that celebrity that hides behind everything, and you see the fancy car and you see all the money that they're making? Is that really them? So I talk about that piece of it too. I think it really depends on the kid as well and how the parents have a conversation about it. Because again, if you're having a conversation as a parent about social media, how it can be utilized, and within school, having conversations about how you can utilize social media successfully. And we've seen with Josh Griffith, he uses his as a positive outlet. I use mine, but how can we teach our kids to use it successfully? Because there's a lot of cyberbullying. There's a lot of hurtful things that come in. And how do they navigate? How do the kids navigate through that to where they're not thinking of themselves in a negative light? Yes, you're hearing the negative stuff come in, but how can I turn it around and make it a positive and use it as a healing aspect? And I think that's the piece that we have to be able to show our kids, not always the negative stuff about it, but show them how we can utilize it successfully.
Got to highlight the positive parts of it. You're right.
Absolutely.
The negatives are so glaring, and everybody talks about the negatives, but there certainly are positives.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we're going to transition now again because we're
before we do, Matt, we've got a caller on the line. Caller, go ahead, please.
Right, here we go.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can kind of hear you.
Hey, this is a last call of the night. I always like when people call the show. Amy, I just wanted to express my gratefulness for all that you do as you travel around. I work in the school system to give back to the community, and I'll share a very quick story. We had a kindergartner today that cussed at the teachers, cussed at me. He bit the BMA person. He spit in the face of the assistant principal. He kicked. He threw chairs. He punched a girl, threw her down. He was being kicked out of 4 schools, that'd be preschools, leading up to our school. And you just think about all that the parents go through, all that the grandparents go through, and certainly all that the teachers and administrators go through, trying to provide an education to those that wish to learn. And so he's slowing that process down for the other 18 to 20 kids in class, and all of the resources that we have to put forth to help this child out process him with the paperwork to bring him to a better, more self-contained space. So anyway, love what you do. Keep doing it. It's a daily fight. I just wanted to send a message of thanks.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
That's such a tough thing. I saw it so many times. And when you're talking kindergarten, you have to get behind where is it coming from.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason behind that behavior.
Yeah.
There's an emotion behind it. There's a reason behind it. They have to dig deep to figure out what that is.
Yeah, getting the kid the help that he needs.
Absolutely.
Sure. And the family, for sure.
Yes.
All right. So let's go up to the slide. We've got 2 slides that we're going to go over here real quick, towards the end here. And this is you guys' community stuff. You can remove the comments over on the side. Talk about growing your community, uniquely you, uniquely yours community there. This is for both, uniquely you and yours. So talk about that. What are y'all looking for? What do y'all want to have help?
The biggest piece in growing these communities is real people wanting to make a real difference. So if you've got a thought, you've got an idea like, oh man, I really think this I could offer this and it would be helpful to whether it's the kids, the parents, get in contact with myself, Kate Galdew, Jeff, to be able to bring that into the community. Whether you're an educator, a parent, someone in the parenting field, someone in the education field. We're always looking for new faces to be able to offer up resources to parents and kids alike.
Yeah. And not just a place to scroll through and look at them, but a place to be involved and interact.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll hit this real quick, and we're looking for the same thing for Convene. We're looking for passionate people who want to build communities, who want to make a difference. We're looking for content creators, people that have a story, something that they want to do, and how they want to help people. We're a platform with a purpose. That's what we're here for. You can see, Amy, you have a true heart and a true platform out there, and you're going out and making a big difference. Before I give you the last words here, I want to note the thing up in the upper left-hand corner, the donate button. So listen, we do this. Doc does this out of the kindness of his heart, right? So it costs a little bit of money. It costs a lot of his time. We're looking for $1 here, $1 there. So if this is a show that you like, you think we're making a difference, hit that donate button. That money is for Doc to help with his promoting the show, with his paying for the platform, all the different things that he does. But it allows us to give him something back for all the hard work that he does. It doesn't just stop here. He'll come on tomorrow. He'll cut the video out. He'll give it back to me. We'll actually get on another call, and we'll do another video where I do a wrap up about this call. And so he's putting time in, putting effort in. Scan that QR code and get back to him. It's just a great thing. Amy, I'm going to give you the last words. Thank you first from me, from Jeff, big parts of Convene. Thank you for being a part of Convene. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to help you tell your story, to help you make a difference in growing, great young men and women all across the country. But you're leading the charge, and so we're just happy that you chose us as the resource that you're using. Your leave behind, and so give me the last words.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. And I'll just say this: if you think you don't have a story, you have a story. If you think it's a scary story, it needs to be heard. And I guarantee you, from that story, you're going to be an expert in something that you can bring to Convene and use it. If you're a parent, hang on. It's a tough role to have, but just hang in there and know you've got support here on Convene. And there's amazing people that are willing to listen to your story and to the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows throughout life in general. So that's how I'll leave that.
All right. Thank you for being on. Next week, Laurel Marr. We're going to be talking about how to become a death doula. Something I never thought to have inside of Convene, but such an important topic. She's doing amazing things, building a great community and helping those who are, really need the help. That's something. There's only two certainties in life: you're going to be born and you're going to die. And she's there making such a huge difference in people's lives. So thank you, Amy, for being on, and thank you, Doc, for everything that you do. Really appreciate it. And thanks, Jeff, for coming on again. Y'all have a good night.